Alrighty, so welcome again to, oh my god, I totally just did not do my intro. Hey, what's up you guys, it's Simon. Welcome back to my channel. Anyways, so here is yet another batch of Inktober prompts. So we're starting out with day 23 of Inktober, and it's actually one of my favorite prompts. So today's prompt was the infamous glow day that confused me previously, and I think that's also due to the fact that the idea of foraging and herbs are also sort of similar, because today our prompts are herbs and glow, which is why I sort of mixed the two of them up, I think, but we have a clear head obviously this day. So initially I wanted to do something that I thought would be pretty easy, which was just a shelf of potion bottles with one of the herbs on the inside being like super bright and glowy. But on one hand, the perspective was sort of throwing me off, and the other, I was sort of worried that I wouldn't really be able to fill the shelves with interesting looking objects. One great example of me not really knowing how to do this very well was from Inktober, ironically. In 2018, I had the idea of someone reaching inside like a medicine cabinet that was also mixed about with like poisons and such. And while I did really like the illustration then, looking back at it, it's kind of messy and really boring, and it's not really improved. Considering it's in grayscale, I don't think that really helped the boring aspect much. So in an effort to not repeat that same mistake, I thought instead of making the shelves the focus, I could make it more of a background element. So I kind of turned it into a little bit of an apothecary. I wanted to keep the glowing aspect, so I thought of doing the background in colored pencil, but I knew it wouldn't stand out much because I didn't want it to be opaque. But if I didn't use them opaquely, I don't know, that's a weird way, but y'all know what I mean. If I didn't fill it in like you would if you were doing like a portrait or something, for example, like how you'd use Prismacolors, that it would look like I just scribbled them on there. So instead, I just sort of tried to leave it white. I did initially think about doing it in a dark purple watercolor, but because of the fact that I knew I was going to be using watercolor for some of the glow effects for like the plants and some of the potions that are on the shelving, I decided to just go with again, just like a white background. This is one of the other ones that I had the infamous problem of I could not get the idea. I kept imagining it done digitally. I kept thinking of how I knew I could execute it, like if I did it this way and this way, and obviously doing it traditionally for Inktober meant that a lot of the things that I had in mind, I didn't think that I could execute very well traditionally, and that ended up being definitely very true. But like I said, I just decided to do a little bit of a white background with some like subtle purple shading in like the cracks and for underneath the shelving and the side of the shelving to sort of like give it obviously depth, but also still be kind of a callback to that purple that I was going to do. I also made the counter sort of thing a deepish purple, which I kind of regret because I did end up going and making the witch a lot purpley. One of the things I struggled with in this illustration was definitely color palette. It was something that despite me saying over and over again, I don't really plan the colors out for my illustrations beforehand, and I usually do like color studies. I figured that I was confident enough in what I had sort of offhandedly decided to choose right before filming, that it was going to work very well with what I had in mind. However, the colors just ended up sort of really clashing, I think. I think once it all comes together and I stepped away from it for a little bit, I did like it a little bit more. But like all of the random colors of the plants, and then the fact that the witch character herself is just so very purple, and then the fact that I decided to make the countertop a dark purple as well, kind of definitely threw me off. I do think you'll see me later towards the end, I'll go over the purple countertop with a little bit of a blue, and I think that does push it back a little bit so that it looks a little bit more blue than it does purple, but I do still think it blends a little more than I actually wanted to, so that was a bit of an issue for me. But overall, I really did like how the character herself turned out. I did have a lot of trouble with her expression and, making her look the way that I wanted to. I wanted her to have a sort of like excited, like she's very happily working, like I kind of like get the vibe of like I've been watching a lot of like Korean like cafe vlogs lately. Specifically there's like a girl, her name is Zoe, or Zoe or something, and the rest of it is in Korean, so I can't give you her exact channel name. But I have really been enjoying her cafe vlogs lately, and you can just tell how much she loves doing what she does. And so I was kind of trying to get that energy, I guess, in her expression. Just something, she's very happy, she's doing exactly what she likes to do. However, her face just keeps looking super scary. Like, I did even edit it slightly when I was doing the line art, like to ink it traditionally, because it's a little bit different from what it is in the PSD. Her face is still a little bit scary in there. And even still, even with like the slight tweaks that I tried to make while I was doing the traditional inking, it still just doesn't quite look right, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm just being picky because I'm getting sick of looking at my own art from every single day. But there's just something off about it that's really I couldn't figure out what to fix. But overall, I still like how it turned out. It definitely could have been so much worse. I liked adding all of the little neon lighting and effects and stuff, like the glitter and some of the potions and things like that. And while I do, again, think that there definitely could be some work done, it's not the worst illustration I've done this Inktober, and I also like doing all the small details. So overall, it was really fun, and I hope you guys like it. So here we have, of course, yet another Posca illustration for this month, and it's also one of my favorites, but also not one of my favorites, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But when I first saw Fire and Carton, I literally had no idea exactly how I was going to be combining the two. While they're of course not total opposites, there's nothing really relating the two of them either. So I decided to break them down as always, and luckily I decided to go, or I decided that with what am I saying? Carton, milk carton, brain broke. I broke them down and I realized that cartons can be like milk cartons. So as soon as I thought of that, like as cartons, as milk cartons, oh my gosh! As soon as I thought of cartons as milk cartons, where am I today? Anyway, as soon as I thought of that, I thought of the idea to do something along the lines of portable spells. And even though technically all spells are portable, because they are spells, we don't have to think about that. So you have to store your spells somewhere, right? I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought it would be fun. So, I'm sorry I bumped you guys. But anyway, I started thinking about what sort of spells could be related to fire. And I took to Google and tried to find a D&D spell that I thought would look cool on the front of a milk carton. And one of the first results was actually Meteor Swarm. And I immediately knew that that's what I was going to go for. So next I got to designing the carton, and I took to Google yet again to see some of those like really graphic and aesthetic milk cartons, like drawings, and a lot of them were like your classic short fat carton, which I did sketch a little bit, but I thought since most of them tended to be that shape, I thought it would be cool to go for more of like a juice carton sort of thing, so that it would be a little bit taller and slimmer and stand out from other illustrations. Although I'm sure these types of illustrations exist as well. But yeah, next, I got to thinking about how I wanted to design the actual images on the carton, and I thought I'd keep the actual meteors pretty abstract, sort of round, but not quite round, and with this sort of like teardrop shape surrounding it to represent like the heat, if that makes sense. You know how meteors are usually on fire. But I am attempting to, or what, back it up. Anyway, I decided to write meteor in Korean because, you know, a lot of the aesthetic sort of milk carton drawings feature some sort of like very visual based language, so like Mandarin or Korean or whatever alphabet in Japanese that you want to use. And while I don't speak Korean, I am trying to learn, but I definitely have not learned the meteor or like the word for meteor yet. So obviously, like I said, I hope this is right. But yeah, like I said, you usually see designs written on them in some sort of language, and I figured I'd use Korean because it's number one, a very beautiful language, but also it has like sort of round shapes to a lot of the lettering that I thought would complement both the lid. What? Where am I? Complement the lid and the shape of the meteor. How? How did I even say that word? That's not even close. Anyway, but like I said, yeah, it's just a very visually pretty language, and I felt like it would complement some of the shapes in the illustration, so that's what I decided to go with. But again, I do hope that it does say meteor. Anyway, so I got to the color studies, which are like pretty aesthetic in your own right, or in their own right. If you want to see the color studies and all the beside help behind the scenes content for these last few days of Inktober. Clearly Inktober has done a number on my brain cells. But if you want to see all of the previous stuff for the behind the scenes content of all these Inktovers as well as the last few remaining Inktovers, feel free to check out the Patreon. It will be linked down in the description as always. I also have a bunch of other cool tier rewards like commission discounts, Etsy discounts, free wallpapers, coloring pages, because despite also receiving all of the PSDs for Inktober, there's also a monthly October line art that you guys can get in addition to all 31 of the other practically line arts. So that's really fun for you guys. But yeah, so there's a ton of cool stuff on there. And anyways, I started doing color studies, and I had the idea initially for like an orange carton, which you guys can already see that's what I ended up going with, but I also played with like a bit of a complementary color scheme and some stuff on there. But again, obviously I did decide to go with the orange accents and like the dark orange accents, and then like the light pastel orange for the carton, and then like some red bits in the brown meteor. But yeah, I really liked how it turned out at first. But once I finished all of the like main color, I realized that it looked super plain. And while initially I had some ideas to do like some white outlining on the lettering and to the meteors as well, I kind of realized that it's like there's really no making it more visually interesting without adding shading, and despite how the cat egg thing sort of went, I didn't really want to use color pencil because I wanted the shading to be super subtle if there was any at all. So I think this is definitely one of the ones where I for sure want to go back and digitize it and just kind of bring that idea more to life, because it does work better as a digital illustration. I thought using Poscas would give it sort of that vectorized effect, but at the same time, it just sort of made everything a little too flat. There's not enough dimension here, and while I do think it's cute, I just think it's a little bit too simple, so I really would have liked some more detail in there, and I definitely 100% will probably be going back and fixing this up a little bit after Inktober. But yeah, so there is I didn't even say the day, is it? It's day 24. So getting caught up today. Today is day 25. Hopefully all of whatever happened in day 24 is well past my brain and I can speak through this one well. But we are back at it again with prompts that are so ironically related to each other that it became really difficult for me to understand what exactly it was that I wanted to do with them. So lantern and burn are obviously so incredibly again, obvious. Lanterns burn. So rather than like trying to attempt to figure out how to fit them together as I have for literally every other prompt this month, I instead had to ask myself how to ultimately separate them, which was definitely new for me. So how can I separate two things that are so intrinsically connected? That word sounds kind of snooty, I'm sorry. Anyways, it's probably because I'm listening to like Moulin Rouge as I'm scripting this, and Christian is a writer, so I guess it's like going up in my brain. By the way, as I suppose is custom throughout half of these Inktober videos, y'all know the drill. If you have not seen Moulin Rouge, do yourself a favor and see it. It's a musical, it's beautiful, it has Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman in it, and all of the music covers, but mashup covers. They're so good. Like there's some Nirvana in there, there's Beatles, there's Elton John. It's good. Watch it, please. It's on Hulu. Anyway, it's so good. Enough about Moulin Rouge though, onto the illustration. So, at first I thought I'd stick with like the simple but too simple and have a person standing in the dark holding a lantern, like kind of like spooky kind of illustration, but that was just so fundamentally boring to me, and also meant that I would have to be coloring a lot of black. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. I knew it would be super hard. I knew if I did it in watercolor that it was going to buckle. I knew if I did it in Copic that it was going to kill my markers and also be really hard to bring any color back from it. So it wasn't going to work. So instead, I started thinking about lanterns more. And I'm sorry to mention Gaia for like the third time this Inktober. But within Gaia, there's a game within a game. And that game was called Zong, or like ZOMG. I'm not really sure how it's supposed to be pronounced, but one of those. And within this game, there's an enemy that's sort of like a floating, why did I say floating like that? Floating lantern surrounded by fire. But I didn't want to do just that. I wanted to bring some more of the burning element in, and of course, a character, because comfort zone. So I thought, why not another pretty spirit girl? I drew a girl with burning flame hair, kind of like, like Flame Princess on Adventure Time. And I had a lot of fun illustrating her hair with the inside of it being sort of like darker, and then the edges being a lot lighter. And then I had some lanterns floating around her, but also some little flames of their own to fill out the white space and make it flow a little bit more naturally. So similar to the previous prompt, I decided to move onto color palette because of course with Flame there's two options, either warm toned or cool toned, and I decided to go with warm toned just because for some reason Blue Flame just wasn't really like sitting right with me. It just seemed off for some reason, even though I wasn't really sure why. It probably would have made more sense to go with blue, because if we're talking about burning, Blue Flame is obviously burning hotter than red, yellow, or orange, if we've learned anything from Azula. But again, the Blue Flame just wasn't really jiving with me, so instead, like I said, I decided to do the warmer colors, which I liked because when I did, I decided to add her like brown cloak and brown eyes, and the wood of the lanterns is also brown as well, but it's harder to see on camera because it's a much darker brown. Nope, day 24 is still sticking with me, it seems. Anyway, it's so much darker brown that it almost sort of looks black. Also, if you're wondering why the center of her hair is dark and fades to light, but it's more so like, I think it's like kind of like the opposite of lanterns. I don't know. I just thought it would be fun and make them sort of like inverted, even though that's technically not how fire works, because I'm pretty sure at the center it should be like white or brighter, I don't know, and then it gets darker on the edges. Am I crazy? Is that how fire works? I don't know. Anyway, I just thought it would look nice and bring like a good like central visual element. I am losing my mind. Anyway, so yeah, the fire also took a little bit of experimenting with blending, because I think I've only drawn fire with Copics once before during last year's Inktober, and I didn't actually do any blending with that one. I think this one fell short in some aspects because it was another that, again, I couldn't stop imagining as a digital illustration rather than traditional, which is the whole point of Inktober. But at the end, I do think that it works really well as a traditional illustration, especially because I was shocked by how like smoothly her cloak and her hair blended. It came out like really soft. It's like kind of hard to tell where certain transition points are, particularly because the colors I used were very juicy. I don't use them very often, so to see how they turned out was like really kind of satisfying, and just watching how smoothly it blended out, if that makes sense. But I did really like how it turned out. I'm sorry, my brain was like on a different plane of existence throughout this voiceover today. I was definitely losing it a little bit, but I hope you guys enjoyed. This is probably one of my favorite batches of illustrations so far. It's definitely not like way up there, but some of the ones that I did were very relaxing to do. And others, the milk carton, I'm kind of disappointed and sad by. I do definitely want to fix some of these up a little bit more, but I hope you guys enjoyed this nonetheless. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe. I don't usually not use my brain good in these videos, but if that's something that entertains you, maybe subscribe. Who knows when it'll happen again. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And also, as always, I want to give a big shout out to my patrons, Elise Thompson, Duran, Mandy, Schleeps, and Puppy Paws. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for continuing to support me every single month, and especially this Inktober, since so many of you have joined. I really appreciate it, and it just means a lot to me that you guys care about my work and about this project. Also, I'm gonna announce it here in case you guys haven't seen the post on the community tab, but I will be taking a break this December. I will not be uploading. I might upload one video for December, but other than that, I'm not 100% sure if I will be uploading at all that entire month. I will be active on Instagram, but I'll mostly be taking a break from videos so that I can kind of like practice and experiment a little bit more with editing and things like that, and just try to improve the overall quality of the channel. I also will probably only be doing one video per week in November rather than the normal two, for that exact same reason, just to sort of like, you know, start working on that, and definitely come out with some really cool content for you guys in January. So if that's something you're excited by, there's another reason to subscribe. But I love you guys so much, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.